Hey guys, this is Kim with Flosstube number 27. Today is the 29th of July. I am otherwise known as Spartan Stitcher on Instagram, and welcome back to another week of stitching progress. I haven't said it in a while, so thanks to all my new subscribers. Welcome to everybody. Thank you for commenting, liking, and just generally sharing this time with me. Okay, so not as many pieces to share with you this week, but I got some really exciting stuff. So, as far as my plans last week, I told you I was going to be working on extra credit stuff for the School of Magical Stitches and Literature. Well, what I totally forgot was that I hadn't worked on Big Red Ship of Life for July yet. And of course, I have to work on that every single month. So, instead of working on extra credit, I started working on Big Red Ship of Life. So, especially since, my husband didn't make Lieutenant Colonel, we may not be here for 4 years that I thought. So my really nice plan that worked out on this, I may have to speed that timeline up. So I definitely need to work on it every month. There's what it looks like. I am on page 3. The original plan was 1 page every 3 months. So 1 row every year, and I would get it done in 4 years. So now I'm on just starting page 3 for July through September. And I need to get some good progress on this. I didn't get as much progress as I wanted because I was distracted with, let's be creative, let's use things up in the house, let's get ideas that have been in my head out. So I didn't get as much done as I wanted. So I'm going to work on this more this week for the rest of July. So here's the page break. I did all of this border and I started on the big border at the top. So not as much as I wanted. Usually the first month of the quarter I get all of this chunk of border done. Well, I wasn't up for that yet, so I started on the little one. So I still need to get at least over here before I fill in motifs in the next 2 months, or even more. Even if I could, we'll see how far I can get for the rest of July. So that's Big Red Ship of Life. And then I finished the Tour de France. So I was working on that with Trick or Treat in Full Coverage Fanatics. This is the one I'm doing, Extreme Cross Country. Focus. Extreme Cross Country, doing the black only first. And because I'm doing 10 stitches, instead of 1 stitch per kilometer, I had to do 2 stitches per kilometer. There you go, that's better. And the last you saw, I was on this row and I had finished this cobblestone fence post where you could see where the sign was going to be. So I had 3 more stages left. But then I had to do more because I'm doing this for both, 1200 and 2400 by the numbers in Full Coverage Fanatics. And also the homework last week in the School of Magical Stitches was either work on a piece with words or stitch 1000 stitches only in black or blue. Not a combination of both, but black or blue. Well, black. So adding on the homework made me do 1,000 more stitches than I had originally planned, because doing both by the numbers on this in 10 stitch would have meant 7,200 stitches in a month. But I was already at 6,200 and change. So then I had to add the 2,000 for homework. So I had to go up to over 8,200 stitches, and only 8,200. Only 6,900 of those were the tour. But I'm really glad that I had to do the extra because I got to see some really exciting things. So, last you saw, I had finished this part. This is the dark spot in the bushes next to where the steps are going up to the house. So you can see there's going to be steps here. And here is your little boy with his black coat. And that's going to be, this is, just happens to be where the page break is. His hat is going to be up here. And then this, I didn't get to do much, but that's going to be just like this, another dark shaded spot in the bushes before I get to back to work on the cobblestone fence post and the rest of the iron fence. So, I didn't unroll it this time, but if you look at my Instagram, Spartan Stitcher, you will see a picture of this whole thing unrolled. Or you can go into Full Coverage Fanatics. Now, I'm only at 8,200, and I'm also using this piece for the 10,000 Stitch Challenge in Haid that goes through just before the end of the year. So I definitely need to work on this more this year for that remaining 1,800 stitches. But that'll only take me 1 or 2 days. So I'm hoping that'll get me closer to a row finish doing that 1,800. Or if I don't get the row finish for 1,800, I may continue to work on it just so I can say I've finished another row. So that's Trick or Treat. And then I got in this crazy, let's use it all up. It pretty much the first part to blame was on Carolyn of, now I can't even think. Off the Grid Needle Arts with Carolyn of Evertotes. She mentioned in her Flosstube last week that she wanted to make some more patchwork project bags, or the bags that she makes. I don't know if she sells the patchwork ones, but you know, she has her Evertote bag business, and that sparked a light bulb with me because I've been saving up pairs of jeans that can no longer be worn. Because they either have holes, they're worn in different places. Wherever they have holes, it's not suitable to wear them anymore. But I can't seem to throw them away because it's a whole lot of really good, sturdy denim. And, you know, I showed you a couple months ago the cute purse that I made for my daughter with, part of her jeans. Surely I can think of something else to make with all this denim. Well, Carolyn's remark of making patchwork project bags was like, that's exactly what I can do. Is I can cut up these pairs of jeans and use the denim and make some project bags. So I started cutting up jeans and thinking about what other materials I can use for like the inside lining. And I've got some old bed sheets, because usually like sometimes you'll wear out one half of the bed sheet, like the fitted part, but then you still have the flat sheet that you can use for other things. I've used that for like when I was showing horses, we wear white breeches to show in, and that's really not a good color to wear around the barn when you're cleaning up stalls, anything around the horse. Anytime horse can just sneeze and all of a sudden you're splattered in horse snot. And so my mom helped me make like a wraparound tie-on skirt using an old flat sheet from bed. So and then when my youngest was a baby, her room had windows in the doors because it was meant as like a study and not as a bedroom. And well, you don't want your baby disturbed, so I cut out pieces of that flat sheet and used them to block the windows in her doors. So it's just, I can always figure out something to use them for. And so then I got my brain working, and I've got a list of pattern ideas that I want to try to chart. And this past weekend I was like, okay, I'm sitting down. I'm going to start to chart this. And it worked out really well, and it looked cool on the computer. So I grabbed some fabric, grabbed some floss. The geeky part of me was super psyched, and I had to stitch it. So that was Saturday afternoon. Well, I just finished it this morning. Now, some of you may not get this, may not understand the reference. It's kind of like, I just dropped it. It's kind of like the t-shirt I'm wearing today. some of you may not get the reference. It says obstinate, headstrong girl. Okay, some of you get the reference. It doesn't just mean what it says. It's a reference to a very popular classic book. One of my favorite books. It's Pride and Prejudice. So I found this shirt on Etsy. I had to buy it. So same kind of idea where there's some meaning behind there, but if you're not aware, if you haven't read it, then it just doesn't mean as much. So this piece, if you haven't read this series, you will not understand it whatsoever. If you have read some of the books in this series, you will absolutely understand it. It says, Fort, Bendon, High Reaches, Eigen, Ista, Telger, Southern, and Monaco Bay. Anybody? Comment below if you know before I tell you what this means. Because the geeky part of me is super excited for this piece. It seems very simple, but some of you may have seen cross-stitch patterns or t-shirts that list the Harry Potter books just by one word. You know, like stone, chamber, Azkaban, goblet, that kind of thing. Same sort of idea. Those words together don't mean anything unless you've read the books. This doesn't mean anything unless you've read the books. So these are the Wires of Pern from the Dragon Riders of Pern series by Anne McCaffrey. So the first time I read Anne McCaffrey, I was in middle school. My mom is a dragon fan as well. She had most of the books and started getting me read them, and I grew up with them. It's like younger people today who grew up with Harry Potter as the books were being published. Well, I was formed by reading the Dragon Riders of Pern series. I remember taking, my mom had one of the trilogies in one big volume. It was a book like this big. And I remember taking that to high school with me from my second read through and quick doing all my homework in class and then pulling out my book on my desk, still in class, and just reading. It was like an escape. It was where I'd much rather be rather than geometry class. So, I have very fond memories of all the Pern books. I still have I have a complete set, and I reread them all the time. And I have more Pern-inspired ideas, but this is the first one. And also, if you've read the books, these colors are not by chance. They mean something. These are the colors that dragons come in. So you have your gold for your queens, your bronzes, which are traditionally the ones that mate with the queens, your browns, which are the workhorses, your blues, and your greens. But then I had to repeat some of the colors because there was lots of wires. And a wire is where a dragon sleeps. That's spelled Weyrs. I have just listed this in my Etsy shop, Spartan Stitcher. So if you get the reference, if you're interested, the pattern is there if you want it. So yeah, that just really, really excited me. I was, sending pictures to my mom, and she's like, she got the reference right away. She said, it's the wires. So, sorry. It makes me happy. Because if you if you search Pern cross stitch in Etsy, there's nothing comes up. So now you will. Now I have something that comes up, and I have more ideas in my head. And then the last piece that I worked on this past week is Camelot. I took the scroll rod apart so you guys can see, because last night I thought I had finished Arthur. But then as I was putting things away, I realized I goofed, to put it mildly. And there's one color that's only used in backstitching, and it's mostly backstitching for the face. And so I didn't have that color on my floss cards that I made up that I showed you guys. So I had to grab the bobbin out of my master set, and I grabbed the wrong bobbin. And I backstitched all the features of his face. And I realized this at 11 o'clock at night, that I had used the wrong color. And it was time to go to bed, and I couldn't stay up and fix it. So what do you think the first thing I did this morning was after I ate my breakfast and, fed the animals? Is I very carefully, head very close to the stitching with hot light on. I was trying to gently pick out the back stitching of Arthur's face and fix it. So, Arthur is done. Everything from the portraits on down is done. So I will show you the whole thing. Okay, so you have all this border. There's the whole thing. If I hold it back here, you can see it. Let me make it focus. So there's the whole thing. This is on 28 count Monaco. I believe it's antique white or cream, something like that. So you guys have seen this bit lots of times. Let me show you Arthur close up and make it focus. So there's Arthur. He really does make a difference when you use the right color in his face. So I finished his face last. I did the ecru netting in the back and all the back stitching of his clothes and his crown. And then last night when I thought I had everything done, I had a little bit of time left. So I said, okay, what can I do? And I was looking, getting a better idea of what this jousting scene is going to be. And there's going to be lazy daisies all the way around here. But the lazy daisies are blended colors. There's a lighter green and a darker green all the way around. So blended lazy daisies. I'm probably going to do those last. I've never done a lazy daisy, but I'm thinking they're probably fiddly, so I'm going to leave those for last. But what I did is I stitched these corner flowers that are like in the border. So there will, at the end, there will be gold beads in the center of each one of those and in those 4. And then what I also started, this is a 3-sided stitch. Let me see if I can get you closer. With the ecru Pro Cotton. I took liberties with this because the instructions said to do each leg twice with number 12 Pro Cotton, which is big enough you have to use a size 24 needle. And being the three-sided stitch, if I did 2 legs, or each leg twice, that would mean 8 threads going through one hole in this 28 count fabric of number 12, which is pretty thick. I hardly ever use a number 24 needle except for this Pro Cotton. And I did a few and I said, no, I don't like it. I took it back out and I'm doing a single leg for the 3-sided stitch. So I will finish that 3-sided stitch and then I will grid the jousting section, which is all over 1. I never showed you guys the picture. I forgot to show you the picture. Let me pull that out. So, let me get you closer so you can see. The jousters are all in color. The background is all backstitch in one color of gray. And the only backstitch on the jousters is their nose piece of their helmet, which is good. Because the problem I had with Arthur is that there's many, many colors in his face, so it's like confetti, and then I had to backstitch it. And then I had to rip out the backstitch and redo it. So backstitching his clothes wasn't bad, but his face, there's so many colors, and it's over 1. So I will grid the jousting section. You can see those lazy daisies in 2 different colors. You can see the 3-sided stitch across. So I don't know what color fabric they used on this one, on the model. But the Pro Cotton they actually call for 833, which if you think about the DMC 833, they say it's a medium ecru. And this, I started this when I was living in Louisiana, and they didn't have 833, and I didn't order it, so I just ended up getting number 12 in ecru. So you can see it's pretty thick, and I keep my 24 needle with it just so I can grab the whole thing and I don't have to search up a 24 needle. So I've used quite a bit already, but it says there's 10 grams on here. It doesn't say like actually how long, how many yards, like in a skein. No, it doesn't say. So all I've got left to do in the purl is that 3-sided stitch. So I will definitely have extra. And this is some of my grandmother's fabric that I use to because if you've ever had a quantum frame, depending on your fabric, these fit loosely, and so putting an extra piece of fabric in there helps hold it when you apply the tension. So I have 3-sided stitch, lazy daisies, jousting scene, and beads. Well, and we're only 28 days into my 90-day challenge. So we'll see how far I get. We'll see how easy or difficult the jousting scene is. Okay, this week's homework in Magical Stitches is the Stitching Army after Dumbledore's Army in Order of the Phoenix. The tasks this week are pretty specific. You're learning different spells, and so you have to apply pieces that match the spells. The first spell is Expelliarmus, and with this one, when you use the spell, red sparks come out of your wand, so you have to do 200 stitches in red metallic or red beads. Now, stick with me. Listen to everything. Stupefy. Well, you got to pick a piece that you can tell how it stunned you, or something is stunned in the piece. Levicorpus, something that's in midair. And these just have to be in your piece, except for the Expelliarmus. You actually have to do the stitches in the red beads or red metallic. Reducto, something that's in pieces. And Expecto Patronum, you have to have a piece that actually shows your Patronus, that is one that's on the list of Patronuses for the world of Hogwarts. If you don't have pieces that fit these, you can double the stitches, so 400 stitches each task, and still earn the same amount of points. Or if you didn't want to go to the meeting for the Stitching Army, you can do the 1,000 stitches and earn half the points, or 5 points. What I'm going to do is, because I need to work more on Big Red Ship of Life, I'm going to apply what I can to Big Red Ship of Life and do the 200 per task. Otherwise, I will double it and do the 400 and see how many tasks I can get done for the homework. And then if I have more time, I still have two extra credit to do, because this past week, I watched the movie while I was stitching on Arthur, so I finished that task. So my only 2 tasks left are the Christmas piece, 500 stitches, which is going to be my new start on the cooler design Santa sampler, and then 500 stitches on your biggest whip for Grop, which is Museum Shelf, and I will be stitching on Museum Shelf more in August, so it doesn't bother me that I won't get that one done in July. I'm going to use that one for Full Coverage Phonetics for August as well, which I'll talk about later. Because there's one other thing I want to talk about, and that's the North Dakota State Fair that we went to this week. They had a Military Appreciation Day on Tuesday, so my husband was able to take off time from work. It was a authorized duty location. The fair was an authorized duty location for Tuesday because it was Military Appreciation. So they fed us a free lunch, which was sponsored by the Beef It's What's for Dinner folks. So we had beef hot dogs and They had some roast. You can make a roast sandwich. They had unlimited rides at the fair for 2 hours. We just got a special wristband. And then half admission if you brought a Pepsi product, which, okay. So we went to the fair. The kids had fun. We went on some rides. It was their first time for the girls on a Ferris wheel. We did a couple of the kiddie coasters, so they had fun with that. And of course, I had to drag my family through some of the buildings so I could find out where the needlework entries were, because I wanted to see how many entries they were, where they were displayed, how they were displayed, and just kind of what kind of things people were actually entering into the fair. I didn't want to enter anything this year until I knew that. So I'm, because I knew going in, I thought there was only 3 classes. What I found when I got there, I saw 2 cross-stitch pieces, 1 heart hanger, and a room full of quilts. There were some like sewn clothing articles too, and knitwear, but I was just baffled that there was only 2 cross-stitch pieces framed, 1 framed heart hanger piece, and we're talking North Dakota has a large population of Scandinavian descendants, which is where heart hanger comes from, and there was only 1 entry. So I have pictures on my Instagram if you want to see all those 3 entries, and I also took some pictures of the quilts because the quilts were amazing. When I came back home, I looked at the handbook, and there are 44 quilt classes. There are 5 cross stitch. It's by size of the framed piece, so up to 8 inches, 8 to 12 inches, and more than 12 inches. There's a wall hanging class and exhibitor's own design and creation. So those are the only five classes for cross stitch. So my question is, okay, where do ornaments go? They're not framed. Anything that I do a Priscilla type finish, where does that go? That's not framed. There's a wide variety of things. Like some of the times when I stitch pieces over artist canvas, does that count as framed? Like, I'm willing to enter things, but you have to work with me. You have to give me some more classes, more guidance. It did not say when you had to have created the piece to be entered this year in the fair. Like in Nebraska, they say if it's been finished in the last 3 years, and you can only enter 1 item per class. So I don't know why you would limit the number of entries when you only have 2 to begin with. And those 2 were from 2 different people. So I'm going to be emailing the folks that run the fair and ask them these questions and send them some pictures of pieces that I've completed and had non-framed finishes, just to show them what I can do and ask them how to enter that, or ask for additional classes, maybe by fabric count, or have an ornament class, or I need more. I think in Nebraska there was like 8 or 9 classes, and if you remember, I think I had 11 pieces that I entered. And also, it's important for me to know when does the piece have to be finished, because there's pieces that I finished in Nebraska but never got a chance to enter, like Red Velvet Cake, like Guardians of Notre Dame, that I finished this past December. Okay, so I finished it just after we moved here, and it's on a platter. How do I fit that into one of their 5 classes? Okay, so I'm going to be asking them the questions. I'll let you know what they say. And then from there, depending on what they say, I can create plans of what I can enter for next year's fair. So that was really interesting. Again, there's pictures on my Instagram if you're interested. Spartan Stitcher. So as I was, this is real quick, as I was trying to get everything situated to start the jousting scene on Camelot, I was going through my working copy, which is like a packet of paper, and I'll show you why. This paper that I'm about to show you is still folded in half, and it's double-sided. This is the actual chart to Camelot. So multiply that by 4 and you have the size of this chart. And it's one gigantic sheet of paper, double-sided. So you can imagine when I first started this piece in Louisiana, how hard it is to try to maneuver this big sheet of paper. Of course, I didn't go to an office supply store. I was trying to use my printer attached to my computer and make sure I had every single part covered so I could, yeah. So I've got like 25 to 30 sheets of paper as a working copy that I will shred once I'm done with this. That's just a fun thing to note because Camelot was a pamphlet. So, all right, guys, I need to end this. I hope you had a good stitching week, and I will talk to you later. We'll see how much I get done this week, and let me know if you, of course, I want to hear good things about my pattern, but if you think it's too simple or, I don't know. I'm looking for constructive criticism. Hopefully there are some of you that have actually read Anne McCaffrey's Pern books. But either way, I stitched it for myself. I'm happy with it. It didn't cost me anything to list it on the site. A few cents maybe. Have a good stitchy day, guys. Bye.